All right, what's up? What's good? What's happening? What it do, baby? You are tuned in to another edition of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast. It's your boy Xavier, aka X, aka Zay, joined by my brother from another Kory, Blackshear. Y'all know him as KB. KB, we made it, bro. We almost there. Conference finals are underway. Of course, we got the finals coming up, and then it's that bittersweet end of basketball season.
Yes, coming too soon, man, because like I said, that down period after the NBA season, while we're waiting on NFL, college football to come back. Not looking forward to it, but we have seen a great playoff so far, so that's the good part, but it's going to be bittersweet when it's over.
Hopefully, we still got some good baseball to watch as we go through those dog days of the summer that are coming up. We're gonna start off here with the Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks and the Cavs finishing up Game 2 on Thursday, and the Knicks are up 2-0. Cavs, they made it interesting in the first half. It looked like that it was going to continue to be a game, and then the Knicks went on one of those Curry, Durant, Clay type of third quarter runs in Game 2. Now, we saw the big comeback that happened in Game 1. The Knicks were down by 22, and they came back and won that game. We're going to discuss that in just a bit. But just overall, I want to talk about the team that's winning right now. We're going to talk about Cleveland in a moment. But, KB, what's your thoughts overall on what you've seen from the Knicks within these first two games?
I mean, basically, for me, they've played well. I noticed that even last night when Jalen Brunson wasn't shooting well, he still recorded 14 assists. So other guys are getting it done. Mikal Bridges is having a great series so far. Then you get contributions from Anunoby. Also, Josh Hart, with the way that Cleveland's playing defense and trying to double Jalen Brunson, has allowed more opportunity for him from the outside. He shot the ball well last night. So overall, I think that the Knicks have, they're the most dangerous team right now in obviously in the Eastern Conference. They've pretty much ran through all of the teams that they played. Um, I like the way that they've been able to win games in multiple ways. Like I said, Jalen Brunson didn't particularly shoot the ball well, especially in the first half last night, but he affected the game in a different way. Defensive wise, in that third quarter, they locked everything up. So I'm happy that they were able to, find a way to win because, like, I believe it was only a 4 point game going into halftime. So for them to be able to establish themselves in that third quarter, get it done without, their main guy being the most effective offensive threat, it just showed that they're, gearing towards that more of a complete team because of the fact that they can get it done multiple ways. Because that third quarter was like very draining if you look at the way that they were able to stifle anything that Cleveland did. Because going into halftime, Cleveland was there. They kept it close. They were, what I'm saying, they were still down, but it was like, okay, going into that third quarter, you got to come out firing on all cylinders because I felt like in the first quarter, it was a back and forth affair. Both neither team really established themselves, but then you saw like for the Knicks, they won the minutes when Jalen Brunson was on the bench because of the fact that he wasn't their most effective offensive player that night. So then, like I said, it was when I looked at not only just looking at the game, but looking at the stat sheet, everybody contributed. Every single player on that starting lineup contributed, whether that was Cat being Cat, OG, Jalen Brunson got it going at certain times, but it was more so playmaking. Josh Hart, I felt like he had the most effective game because of the coverage that Cleveland had on Jalen Brunson, so it allowed more open shots for him. OG attacking the rim, he like a bull in a china shop. He's super strong, so they don't have anybody on the wings that can guard OG when it comes to going to the rim. So when it comes down to it, the Knicks look like they on a collision course to get to the NBA Finals, and we'll see what happens. But right now, through those first two games, the impressive comeback in game one, and then the dominating fashion in which they finished that second half in game two, it just let me know that they right now are the team to beat. And, we'll see what happens. But they need, no matter what's going to happen in the Western Conference, they need to get the rest because whether the guys are banged up after this series or not, whoever comes out of that Western Conference, you're going to need your full assortment of guys to get it done if this is going to be the team that's going to get it done. Because I know that, New York is starving for a title right now. So anything that they can do, they got to finish the job, though, because we've seen them on this stage before last year and they couldn't get it done. So this time you got to finish the job, because I felt like this is one of those opportunities that when you go to Cleveland game 3, you have to get greedy. You gotta push your foot down on them, because if you give a team life, who knows what happens? This is the playoffs. We don't seen crazy stuff happen before, So I thought they were the favorite team last year. Here comes Indiana, and they stormed through and they made it a series, and then that was pretty much it. So I want to see can they finish the job this time. That's really all I need to see, because we know what type of player Jalen Brunson is. We know what type of team this is at this point. They have a collection of guys that can play defense, make open shots. So I just want to see, can you get it done? And on the other side, like I said, I know we'll talk about the Cavs in just a second. How do you respond to this adversity? You've been down in series before. You've been in dogfights in your first 2 series of the playoffs, whether it was against the Raptors, whether it was against Detroit. You've been in dogfights. Now you're going to go against the most talented team that you faced in the playoffs all year. How can you respond? Because this is where your leaders got to show up. Donovan Mitchell, you got to show up. This is where James Harden, you definitely got to show up, being the veteran presence on this team. So I'm looking to see what you're going to do. Show me something, because now you got to prove it. Because now it's just like, okay, Donovan Mitchell, for you, this is your first time getting to a conference finals. How are you going to respond to this adversity? Because I know he tried to, he tried to say, hey, we've been in this position before, but not against this type of team. So now what are you going to do to kind of ease the blow? Because this is a must-win game 3, whether we want to admit it or not. I don't care what you believe, what kind of team you believe you are. This is a must-win game 3, not only for the Knicks, not only for the Cavs, but also for the Knicks, because like I said, establish that dominance, finish the series out quickly, so that way you can rest, because we've seen, all these injuries that have been piling up on the Western Conference side of it. You need your full collection of guys. So any type of rest that you can get is going to be needed. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Josh Hart leading the Knicks in scoring last night with 26. Bridges and Brunson with 19 apiece. Towns with 18. My problem is not that Josh Hart led the team in scoring. That could happen on any given night. It's how he got to 26 points. He was wide open on so many shots.
I think for me, I think if you're going to play that type of coverage, you see, I felt like I kind of understood where they were going with it. They were saying, if we're going to play percentages, we would rather Josh Hart take a shot, a 3-pointer, than OG or Mikal Bridges. The problem is they were almost like warm-up practice shots. He was uncontested on a good majority of the threes that he hit. And so I would like to see them go to more of a zone if you're going to play anything, because at least if they're going to attack, they're going to have to attack the middle of that zone. But I think that right now they played chicken. They lost last night, because the Knicks shown that, we can shoot. And this is a guy that's not necessarily looked at as a score first guy. But if you give an NBA player sometimes these type of open looks, I mean, this is just practice shots almost. This is practice shots, and he made them. He's shown that he can make threes, even if it's not at a consistent clip. He can make those shots. So for me, I think that coverage got to change, though, for the Cavs. They cannot run that again. Like, you got to do something completely different, because if you're going to choose to double Jalen Brunson, it has to be a hard double. It can't be a soft double and then, you just leave guys open, because if that ball swings, then there's going to be open shots, no matter if it's for Josh Hart, OG, Mikal Bridges. Somebody's going to get an open shot, because you're not blitzing Jalen Brunson like you should. You're just doing a soft double and then hoping that it could get done with somebody taking an uncontested 3. But I think Kenny Atkinson, he gotta eat some of that blame, because that game plan last night was terrible, especially given the fact that if you're going to lose, you see, a lot of people probably think about it like, okay, if Josh Hart is going to beat us, fine. But it's more than that. It's the fact that how you are doubling. If you're going to double, like I said, it has to be a hard blitz. If you're going to leave them open, I mean, we're not talking about like a Dyson Daniels. That could work against somebody like him. You can't do that against somebody like Josh Hart. Josh Hart, he's shown that he can make a shot. And so I can see that if you come out with that same game plan, they'll burn him again, whether that's him or Mikal Bridges, because eventually somebody's gonna get hot. And it only takes one game for somebody to just get hot and go on a little run where they can't miss. Josh Hart picked his spots last night, but even when he wasn't just shooting threes, you saw him attack Jared Allen on off the dribble. So it's multiple things that I saw that was wrong with the coverage last night.
Well, something that I've seen that has gone wrong in these first two games, Kenny Atkinson doesn't seem to want to use timeouts. There was an 18-1 run that the Knicks had in game one in the midst of that comeback. He did not want to use timeouts. In game two, in the third quarter, that run that we were talking about, the Knicks went on an 18-0 run, and this man still did not call a timeout. It's okay to reset. It's okay to let your guys come to the bench, get a swallow of Gatorade, and get back out there and try something else again. Some other issues with the game plan. KB, do you realize that Evan Mobley had 14 points in the first half of game two, and he didn't even get a shot in the second half of the game? How do you do that?
That's a problem because at times he looked like your best offensive weapon. Because even Donovan Mitchell struggled last night. I know Jalen Harden didn't turn the ball over, but it's too many times where I look at this team and they have too many dry spells. Last night in that third quarter, I mean, yes, I'm going to give credit to the Knicks because they turned it up defensively. I'll give them that credit. But at the same time, when you look at how that game was going, yes, the timeout would have been good. Timeout or two would have been good to reset because at 18-0 run, like I said, you've already stolen momentum. Coming out of halftime, they look flat. They just look flat, and that is something that you can't do on this stage. I don't care if it's James Harden, who's been here before. I don't care if it's Donovan Mitchell. Like, y'all don't have the type of weapons that the Knicks have to get into a game where, like, if they go on a run, y'all have that type of team that y'all can just, like, it clicks like that. No, because, like I said, we saw y'all go on a dry spell in that fourth quarter in game one. Then you do it again in game two in the third quarter. Even if you want to count overtime in game one, it's too many dry spells where they're having like they can't get to their spots, they can't get shots off. The Knicks switch everything. It's nobody to attack because even the way that they're hiding Jalen Brunson on defense, it's like they're doing their part. Now it's time for because if you look at it, X, like the way that they attack James Harden in pick and rolls, why are you not in a similar fashion trying to attack Jalen Brunson in pick and rolls? All the ISO basketball, that's not you. That's not how you're going to win games. Because even if y'all are dominating on the glass, it's too many times where y'all are settling for shots that don't make sense. Because those same shots that went in game one didn't go in game two. Those same contested three-pointers that y'all were taking on, that's fine if you take those because I'm pretty sure, unless it's Sam Merrill or even Dean Wade at times and even Max Strus at times, even Donovan Mitchell, I'm sure outside of those guys, they'll live with some of these contested shots because the percentage of y'all making them aren't that going to be that high. So you got to figure something else out as far as attacking this team. Kenny Atkinson, like we just said, he got to be better. He got to be better. Not only at the timeouts, the way that he's approaching the game plan is not good. So they got to get back to the drawing board and scrap whatever they had with game one and two, especially game two. You got to get back to the drawing board and figure something out because the fact that y'all are allowing Jalen Brunson to be hidden on defense and not attacking him the same way that they are attacking James Harden is a problem for me. That's a problem.
Yeah, but who do they really have that they can go to outside of Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench that can really be effective? Donovan Mitchell is not that great of a defender. We know James Harden and defense don't go together. Max Strus can possibly give him a look. Sam Merrill, no. Who does Cleveland have that they can actually expose what's happening with Jalen Brunson in that way?
I think it's not just one particular guy. I think that you're just going to have to, whoever your offensive weapon is at that time. Because, like I said, I did like the way that Dennis Schroeder was playing defense on Jalen Brunson last night, face guarding him, denying the ball. I did like that. But
let me throw something at you. At what point do you say, Evan Mobley, you're a defensive player of the year? We need you to take the assignment of Jalen Brunson.
Well,
that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one because you got OG and you got Cat to worry about. Jared Allen, he can handle his own with Cat, and Cat can handle his own with him. But I don't think that Dean Wade or Sam Merrill or any of those other guys would be able to handle OG Anunoby. And if they get him going, that's another problem.
And see, the problem with you like saying, "Oh, I need you to pick up Jalen Brunson." The thing that what they're trying to do is keep Evan Mobley in the paint. So if Cat drives by that initial defender, I saw him with Max Strus on him last night. If he drives by that initial defender, then he has Evan Mobley backing him up on the backside. So the thing is, though, if you bring Evan Mobley out that paint, and then you have, like, let's say Cat being guarded by Jared Allen on the perimeter, you're leaving that paint exposed. So now it's like, now you got to a point where you don't really have a good coverage because, like I said, outside of Dennis Schroeder on as far as defense, he's the only one that's shown me consistently that he can stick with Jalen Brunson. I know Dean Wade, he's had he's had moments where he's shown that he can play good defense on Jalen Brunson, but for the most part, Donovan Mitchell when he switched on to him, James Harden when he switched on to him. It's too many times where you're getting exposed. And this is one of the things that people were saying when that trade was made for James Harden and the Darius Garland trade is now you have a lot. I'm not saying that Darius Garland was a lockup defender either, but now you basically going to get exposed anytime. And that's why I can commend Mike Brown for what he did because of the fact that we don't have to get into a track meet with these guys. We can literally go at the one guy because if they start rotating off of certain people, we got shooters all around. Everybody in that starting lineup can shoot. So the fact is, do y'all really want us to? Because if we can go at James Harden all we want because we know that we have shooters. Cleveland doesn't because Jared Allen is a non-threat to shoot the ball. You have James Harden, Evan Mobley, and Donovan Mitchell to shoot the ball, and even Sam Merrill. But outside of that, you know what I'm saying? They're not going to rotate off of him. They're going to rotate more so off of Jared Allen and hope that, we can get a long rebound. So I don't really know exactly who they have as far as the answer, but I feel like that you got to at least try to go at Jalen Brunson at some point. You got to try him because even when we saw the Hawks in the first round, when they went at Jalen Brunson, they had success. And then, eventually the Knicks adjusted. You got to at least get them out of what they're currently running to at least, make them think about something else. But the fact is that they haven't done that so far this series. Jalen Brunson hasn't been attacked necessarily like he should have been. And I think that's the real key for the series is you have to go at the worst defensive player on the floor. Because as much as I feel like Jalen Brunson tries to play defense, he's still limited on what he can do defensively. So you have to go at him, wear him out on defense so that way he can't wear you out on offense. It's just kind of like a trickle-down effect. So you got to do something differently.
Something else that Cleveland probably should look at doing differently too offensively, and this really looked like it was working in the first quarter. It looked like it was giving the Knicks some problems. Find ways to get both Allen and Mobley more involved in the offense. Stop going to that perimeter game depending so much on Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. Because that when you run that big lineup and you allow it to be effective, it causes New York some problems. Because you're not going to be able to play Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns on the floor at the same time. So that's just something that Cleveland also should consider doing right there. But, man, all around, and we haven't really said it so far very much. I'm going to go into it now. You got to give Mike Brown credit, man. He is outclassing Kenny Atkinson all the way, all around right now.
And see, the thing is, and I'm glad you said that about the Cat Mitchell Robinson lineup because when you see a lineup like that, of course, at that point now it becomes a situation where they're gonna go into the Hacker Robinson type of method now, where you're gonna put Mitchell Robinson at the line because of the fact that you can't if you can't stop him, that might be the best effective method when it comes to stopping that offense, because the fact that Mitchell Robinson hasn't shot the ball well. I think that I want to see Evan Mobley more on the block, working off the block. I don't need to see you on the perimeter shooting threes. Every now and then, if you want to stretch the floor, cool. But for the most part, you're right. They do got to get him more involved. I don't know if that's more of a picking. Like he has to work out of the mid range. I don't necessarily care about him shooting threes because that's a luxury, if anything, more than a necessity. Because you got guys that are on the perimeter that can shoot the ball. Jared Allen, like I said, you just got to be a disruptor. You got to disrupt anything that they do. Like I said, if Cat's gonna make those threes, then you got to make it difficult for him. But also the fact that you got to be a monster on the boards. You have to, be a monster defensively, because Jared Allen doesn't have plays really ran for him. He has to just disrupt the game in a bunch of different ways, like where it's going to be, he got to be a menace defensively. He got to be a menace on the offensive and defensive boards. Mobley, like I said, you're too skilled to be just confined to the perimeter shooting threes. I don't need you shooting 5-6 threes a game. I need you working off the block, the mid range, the free throw line, pull ups. That's where I want you at.
What you're describing right now is exactly how we used to watch the Boston Celtics utilize Kevin Garnett. And honestly, I feel like if the Cavs did something like that with Evan Mobley, it actually would be towards their benefit even more.
Yeah, like you just gotta, because like I said, outside when you're talking about Cat, right, in that starting lineup, Cat is the tallest big they have on the floor, the tallest player that they have on the floor. So with that, if you're gonna have Jared Allen guard him, and then use Evan Mobley as like more of a roamer, fine. But the thing is, though, you got to stop the dribble penetration into the lane. And I don't think that, going with a double team type of mentality is the way to go, because all it is going to be where they're going to get the ball out of Brunson's hands initially. Then if they do get the ball back to him, they're going to go look for whoever is guarding James Harden to go set that pick. And now they got the action switched over to that. Once James Harden's in that pick and roll, you're limited because he's not going to stop anybody on that as that initial defender. And then once that defense collapses, that's where you're going to see all those open shooters. So you got to make a conscious decision. Are we sure? Because at this point, this is why that trade never really moved me as far as the James Harden trade. I know, even Pat Bell's been on, online cheerleading for James Harden. This is the negative part of his game that people want to, gloss over. But, because of what he used to do offensively, yeah, he can be an offensive engine. But if you're a cone defensively, you're hurting your team, because basically once they're past James Harden as that initial defender, they're playing 4-on-5, bro. They're playing 4-on-5, and then we'll see. Like I said, even if you bring in a Deuce McBride, he can shoot the ball. So you got so many threats on the perimeter for New York, but they can beat you inside as well, because like you said, who's going to guard OG? Because Donovan Mitchell ain't locking nobody down. James Harden ain't locking nobody down. Sam Merrill ain't locking anybody down. So now you're relying on your power forward and your center to pretty much be the defensive anchors. But sometimes by the time it gets to them, it's too late, because they may have brought them out of the paint to address other people, and that may have limited them on their versatility on defense. They may not have anything they can do by the time it gets past that initial defender. So I'm not gonna lie to you, man. The way it's looking right now, unless something currently changes with the game plan, they could get swept. They really could get swept. And even if they don't get swept, gentlemen sweep at this point, just because I haven't seen anything that would make me think otherwise.
So if either one of those two things does happen, who is Dan Gilbert's first phone call going to be to once this season ends?
LBJ. I mean, at least look, it is a win-win when you think about it, because if you can find a way to get LeBron to come home, because we already know the issues that's been going on with the Lakers front office and their direction of where their team is going. Because I'm pretty sure LeBron is keeping a close eye on what's going on in Cleveland right now. Even if it's not going to make national news, even if he's not saying anything to anybody in his inner circle, I'm sure he's keeping an eye on what's going on, because he could be looked at as the missing link to a team that has championship aspirations. And if next year is the final year of LeBron, you run out a lineup of James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, LeBron James, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, or you roll the dice and see what else is out there. But like I said, the only other thing that I could see that would have been out there, you declined that trade already when it came to the Giannis trade. You decided that Evan Mobley was too valuable, so you decided to move off of that deal a couple months ago. And so at this point, I don't know, but I feel like that LeBron James would be one of the first people that Dan Gilbert has called, the prodigal son coming back home. He's already won them a championship. I say it's a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned. So if you're going to call anybody, and this is all given the circumstance, if you come up short, which right now it looks like you will, because, we just talking about talent. Knicks a better basketball team. They are a better basketball team right now. They've rode this wave pretty much the entire playoff run. They've, righted the wrongs of last year. But if I'm Dan Gilbert, I'm calling LeBron James regardless of what happens this year, but especially if they lose, and they lose in embarrassing fashion, especially coming off that Game 7 win against Detroit where they were riding high. And then coming into Game 1, like I said, that's why I say the momentum from Game 1 would have kept, I'm not saying that they would have won Game 2, but at least they would have been riding high off of a dominant win. Had they not blown and choked that lead in Game 1, they could have possibly rode that momentum into Game 2. So I'm looking at it like, I got to call LeBron. There ain't no other choice, because I'm pretty sure he's entertaining the idea of coming home to finish his career. And what a better way to finish it than home.
I'm with you on that. But I'm also now asking the question, too, is Kenny Atkinson going to be the coach of this team next year if that move does happen? Because he really has looked bad in these first 2 games of these Eastern Conference Finals. You talk about them going 7 with Toronto in the first round. That honestly shouldn't have happened if we're being honest. And then they end up going 7 in the second round as well with Detroit. I thought they would have closed it out in 6, and they came home and they honestly got embarrassed, especially in that fourth quarter. So there is a missing element that's missing there. But so far in these first 2 games, no doubt about it, some of the players could definitely be playing better. But the coaching, I don't know if LeBron James will sign up for that.
And he may not. And it may be one of those things where they look at Kenny Atkinson completely different, especially after this series, because it's like Mike Brown's playing chess and he playing checkers right now. Like, the idea that he's being outcoached like this, and like I said, Kenny Atkinson, he's not a rookie head coach. He's been in playoff battles before. It's just the fact that there is a lack of adjustments is where I'm having fault with his coaching style right now. There's a lack of adjustments. There's a lack of even when it comes to the timeouts. Like, it's all of that goes into like my decision making on whether I bring him back. Because now I will say it is going to be a little bit harder as far as to, fire him coming off of a conference finals appearance. But, because the way I look at it, like, the Knicks are a better team. You knew this was going to be a uphill battle. You knocked off the number 1 seed, but I think that some people even viewed the Knicks as the best team still, regardless of seeds in the Eastern Conference. So look at it like it is going to be hard to really, because the way I look at it is, if you do move off Kenny Atkinson, who do you bring in? Because it's not like there's a plethora of coaches out there that, there's not a plethora of coaches. Now, if that opportunity comes up, you possibly could look at, bringing in a college coach, maybe.
Well, it just so happens that there's a certain guy who was just a coach of the Dallas Mavericks who's a good friend of LeBron James, who LeBron James was rumored to want to be the head coach of the Lakers over Frank Vogel, even after Frank Vogel won the title in the bubble. That would be Jason Kidd.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it. But like I said, I think it would have been easier to move off of him had they gone out maybe the first round, maybe even, the second round. It definitely would have been easier to move off of Kenny Atkinson because of the fact that how they finished last year. And then, losing in round one would have been an easier way to move off of him. I think that it would have just been, more diplomatic to move off of them than as opposed to coming off of a conference finals run where you may only needed a certain piece or pieces to be able to get to that next level, which is to the finals. So I don't know. I mean, Jason Kidd would be a good look because, like I said, we've seen Jason Kidd be able to develop players. We've seen him be able to come into different systems and get it going rather quickly. So if that is the move, I'm not going to be opposed to it. I know LeBron wouldn't be opposed to it either because, like I said, you talking about one of the greatest basketball minds that this game's ever seen in Jason Kidd. So if that's the way you want to go, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not opposed to that at all. But if that's what it would take to lure LeBron back to Cleveland, you got to make that move.
Yeah, especially if you can get, even if it's just 1 year. And we assume it would just be 1 year. But if you could possibly get another title out of this, you got to go for it. Game 3 is on Saturday. I expect those fans in Cleveland to bring it. I just hope that their team gives them a reason to bring it.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be rocking for sure because, like I said, this is a stage that, Cavs haven't been in since, 2018? So hey, we'll see. But I know that the Q is going to be rocking. It's going to be crazy in there. They got to respond, though. Like I said, we'll see what type of situation. We're going to see what the Cleveland Cavaliers are made of within probably the first 5 minutes of the game. Because if they come out flat and lay a dud, they're going to get swept. So, I know we got to transition into some quick hitters real quick. Aaron Rodgers yesterday announced that he is going to be entering his final season in the NFL. And all I can say is congratulations to a career that a lot of people are going to look at kind of differently because we can say that he overachieved and then some people are going to say that he underachieved. With the way that his career has played out with some of the teams that he's had, I look at it like he had a great career. One of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in NFL history. His tenure in Green Bay cannot be undermined at all. I think that, it's a shame that the way that his career has gone since he left Green Bay, going to the Jets and having the injuries that he had there, then going to Pittsburgh and not necessarily having the success that he wanted to out in Pittsburgh. I think that, I looked at it like, it's time. It is time because, like I said, this ain't the same Aaron Rodgers of old. We've seen that he has lost a little bit, whether it's just with the accuracy, whether it's been with arm strength. His mobility is a little bit different now. And I think that he knows that, this game is transitioning to where you gotta be able to necessarily, I'll say this. What it is that I look at it is when you get to that age or you get to that many seasons, the hardest thing is to know when it's time to call it quits. So I commend him on that because some guys don't know when it's time to let go. And for him, I felt like that, he saw the writing on the wall. This is a young guy's game now. And, everybody goes through it. Father Time is still undefeated. But Aaron Rodgers finishing his career, I look at it like, this is the right time. So, I wish him well on his career. We'll see exactly how it goes. Hopefully he can will them to a playoff appearance in his last season, but it's going to be an uphill battle for them because we already know that AFC North it gets treacherous out there. So we'll see what happens, but I'm wishing him well on a very successful career.
I'm just glad that it appears, at least from the outside looking in, that he and Mike McCarthy seem to be in a better place with their relationship than it was the last time we saw them in Green Bay. Those are two guys that have had a lot of success with each other, and it's always disheartening when you see things end on a bad note like that. So it's looking like it's going to have a chance to end on a much better note, and I'm happy that they're going to have a chance to do that. I'm also thankful that Aaron Rodgers is back in the building this year because hopefully that's what Will Howard and Drew Aller will need. Now, KB, you know where I sit on this. I feel like Drew Aller is the guy that's going to end up being the future quarterback of this franchise. Maybe they do go for a guy in 2027, maybe they don't. But the reason I have so much stock given into Drew Aller here is because coming into last season, this was a guy who was viewed as the potential number one overall quarterback prospect. So there obviously was something that scouts saw there. Now, we saw how the season went. It wasn't going well to begin things off, and then he got injured in the season as well. That's why he fell to the third round, because of those combination of things. But this is a guy that's 6'5", around 235 pounds. Prototypical size for the quarterback that you want to have in the NFL. So I'm hopeful that he or Will Howard, but I honestly believe it'll be Drew. I'm hopeful that, they're in the film room with Aaron Rodgers, learning everything that they can, and he doesn't seem like a type of guy who types to hoard information from people. I mean, we saw what he did for Jordan Love and Green Bay. I do got to say this, though, before we move on to the next quick hitter, because I was thinking about this in the past couple of days. You know how we've heard within these past 2 years, well, how do the Packers get so lucky? They get to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and now from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. I'm starting to feel like that Jordan Love thing is not going to go as well as folks in Green Bay are predicting it's going to go. It looked like it could have had the chance to be it, and maybe it still does. But as of right now, I don't view him as a top 10, top 12 quarterback in the league.
Eggs, that's a lot right there. I mean, I look at it like this: Jordan Love, with the teams that he's had, I think that people are expecting more. I think his performance has looked good in certain times. He's had certain moments that look really good, but then for every good moment he has, then you look at it like, okay, now we gotta look at you when we're talking about quarterbacks. We gotta look at everything you've done in totality, right? We gotta look at how you come up in big moments. And I know that playoff left a stink, like a bad kind of mojo in everybody's eyes, because of the way that they went out was terrible last year. But the one thing that Jordan Love has to utilize, like, you have one of the best running backs in Josh Jacobs. You have I still think one of the greatest offensive coaches that we've got in the game right now, Matt LaFleur. Like, you gotta somehow, like, we've seen guys get more done with less. So you got to somehow find a way to get it done no matter what. But like I said, it's about your playoff success as well. We've seen Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers have it. And if you're talking about the transition from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, we haven't seen that necessarily that playoff success. As a matter of fact, I even had a friend that told me that Jordan Love literally looks like the same guy that he has always been since he's been named the Green Bay starter. He looks like he hasn't improved on anything. So, I mean, if you say that he's not a top 12 quarterback, and I'm just going off of the top of my head, yeah, I could see why you say that. I could see why, because like I said, he comes up very short in moments that we're expecting him to be great. And that was the calling card for Aaron Rodgers. We knew he was going to come up in certain moments clutch. So, yeah, I can see that.
It just has not been consistent enough for me. We'll see if it can change in 2026. Los Angeles Rams signing reigning league MVP quarterback Matthew Stafford to a one-year extension worth $55 million. That's a lot of zeros, KB.
Yeah, and I just wish that the Rams would have helped him out, because we are towards the end of his career. Would have helped him out in the draft, got him a capable wide receiver, another guy to help him out, go along with Devontae Adams and Puka, depending on whatever happens with his situation. But just gave him more weapons to help him out, because like I said, I feel like the Rams are there. And then you go out and get Trent McDuffie, you go make, you make certain moves to solidify your defense. I just felt like that if you were gonna go do that, least you could have done was go and help the guy out in the draft. But I look at it going both ways. We got fortunate to witness Matt Stafford. He finally won his MVP. That's eluded him his whole career. So kudos to him. But it's just a shame that they didn't try to help him out with more when I felt like the opportunity was there.
Yeah, and maybe he can come back and have a similar type of season this year. I expect Puka Nacua to be on his best behavior this year. We'll see what Devontae Adams has left in the tank. He was really good last year. I believe he led the league in receiving touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that again just simply because of age and attrition, but we'll see. I mean, this is still viewed as one of the favorites to represent in the Super Bowl next year, if not hoist up the trophy. We'll just have to see what ends up happening. Well, the New York Giants are giving Joe Schoen a new contract. He signed a multi-year deal to continue to be this team's general manager. I really don't understand what this is about because, as far as I'm concerned, John Harbaugh is the guy in the building now who's making all the decisions. They framed it as if he's going to continue to work with John Harbaugh for years to come. No, I view it as he's going to continue to work for John Harbaugh for years to come. Whatever John Harbaugh wants is what's going to happen. Joe Schoen's getting paid a lot of money to just sit there and nod his head and go along with everything that John Harbaugh wants to do. And I can't say that that's a bad thing because of what we've seen out of the past few years with the New York Giants prior to John Harbaugh being there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of surprised by that move as well. But yeah, this is John Harbaugh's team. We pretty much know that like he's such like the success that he's had coming from the Baltimore Ravens to now the New York Giants. I don't think that you would bring him in without him having much of an influence over the decisions that go on with this team. I think that he just, yeah, like I said, he just has to shake it, nod his head. Like you said, that's not a terrible job to have, getting paid all that money to just be basically a yes man. I'm cool with that. If that was me, I'd be cool with it. But yeah, he just basically just has to get out the way, let John Harbaugh run this team and instill this vision, instill his vision into this team that he sees as fit. But right now, we know that this team has a lot of potential. I like the moves that they've made in the draft. I like the moves that, like, what I'm saying, bringing hopefully come Jackson Dart comes back strong. Scatterboo comes back from injury strong. Malik Neighbors and so on. Then we get, those monsters on that defensive line going. Hopefully this team, I'm looking at the potential of this team. So I feel like they could go far. I feel like that their team can be great for years to come with the amount of young talent that they have. But the writing is on the wall as far as for showing. Like, I think that he just has to like step out of the way more. So he doesn't have, like, when you had Brian Daboll, like, we know that it was kind of like Daboll has certain influence and he has certain influence. But when you bring in a guy like John Harbaugh, he has all the influence. Everything that he wants for this team, you have to allow him to do it. You have to allow him to do it. You can have input on it. You can even have some type of, yeah, you can have input or some type of influence on it, but you have to allow him to, build this team out the way that he sees fit.
Well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander officially winning his second league MVP. Probably was a mistake to give that to him on Monday night with Victor Wembanyama sitting there literally watching the entire ceremony. But congratulations are in order to SGA winning his second straight league MVP, the second one of his career. Before we even go into what happens if OKC wins another title, what does it mean for Shai's legacy? Where do you have him all time right now? A guy with 2 MVPs and at least 1 championship and a finals MVP.
Right now, I would say he's probably a top 30, top 30 player. And the reason why I say that is because that's with 2 MVPs and just 1 championship. And I seen him being put in the categories with guys. I'm not right there because I've seen him being put in the category with guys because of that MVP. And that's why I say, like, we look at it I just can't put him in certain conversations as of yet. Game is different, pace is different, his play style is different. Now, while I say that he is a real feel good story because of how he developed, even under the tutelage of Chris Paul, while Chris Paul was in OKC, just getting him to a different level mentally on how to be a constant pro. But it's just the fact that it's about the level of consistency. We've seen him be one of the most efficient scorers over the last like 4 seasons. Um, you know, he's the best player on the best team, but now it's more so about if he gets through this obstacle, right? If he gets through this obstacle, which is the San Antonio Spurs, which I think is the team to beat, and that's my team to beat right now. That if I had to pick a champion out of the 4 teams that are remaining, it would be the Spurs because of that X factor that is Wemby. If they can get past this team with all the injuries that they have, Jalen Williams being hurt, AJ Mitchell being hurt, I will give him top 20. I will give him top 20 because you're talking about back-to-back championships, back-to-back MVPs. Yeah, you might even be in the top 15, top 12 to 15 category at that point because of the fact that you're going to climb up, you're going to pass certain guys that necessarily don't have it because you be in front of for me because of the short time span that you accomplish these things, you definitely move ahead of Giannis for me because of the fact that you got it done. You know what I'm saying? You capitalized on y'all's championship window, which I felt like that the Bucks did not do with Giannis. Now, could Giannis, stay in that area? Yeah, sure he could, because he's still going to be one of the greatest power forwards that play. But you're going to eclipse him. You're going to eclipse guys like possibly even Kevin Garnett. You're going to eclipse certain guys that necessarily don't have the individual accolades to go along. Like his resume is going to be able to be put up against multiple guys. Now, when it comes to guys like Kobe and all that, I can't go that far. I can't go that far for the specific reason. Yes, you have the MVPs. Yes, you have the back-to-back titles. But when it comes down to it, if like I've seen the comparisons online. So when I say the Kobe comparison, it has been a thing, even been a thing with Steph Curry. I can't go that far because I've seen these guys have a consistent level of play throughout a course, not just a short window. I've seen it throughout the course of their career. So I just got to let it play out. Now, I'm not saying that he can't eclipse those guys. I'm just saying let it play out a little bit more. Now, if he was to win back to back, then possibly even if he weren't to win next year, if he were to get 3 MVPs in a row, let's just say that. It ain't too much a lot of people gonna be able to say. Because like I said, he's earned his right to get into those conversations. But like I said, we'll see how the rest of his career plays out. But right now he's about top 25 to 30 for me.
I got him right around that range too. He's definitely now in the top 10 guard conversation all the time for me, even if it's right there, right around 9 or 10. A lot of great guards in the history of the game. I don't want to start going down the list because I feel like I'm going to probably leave somebody off and we'll be here all day doing that. But congratulations once again to SGA on the second MVP. And we'll talk more about the Spurs and OKC series in part 2 of the show. Got to end off the quick hitters on a sad note, man. NASCAR driver Kyle Busch passed away on Thursday at the age of 41. It just came out earlier in the day that he was in the hospital battling a severe illness. KB, just 5-6 days ago, this man was out on the racetrack winning a race, and it's just so ironic that he said at the end of it, you never know when your last one's going to be, and that indeed turned out to be his last one. God rest his soul, bless his family, and everybody he impacted. It's just a horrible tragedy.
Yeah, and the pass away at the age of 41 lets you know that, it can happen to anybody at any time. I was kind of shocked. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw the news, I saw Bleacher Report's post yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, because like you just said, he was just out on the track not too long ago. Then the illness came out and they said he was going to miss Sunday's race. And I didn't think it was anything severe. I didn't think it was anything life threatening. I thought it was just an illness. He'll be back before we know it. So when it happened, I was just like, wow, that just lets you know life is precious, life is short. prayers out to his wife and kids, because I know that is something I wouldn't wish on anybody. I think that the racing community, the NASCAR community, has definitely lost one of the legends of its sport. I think that all of us growing up, whether you were a fan or not, you have certain names that were synonymous with greats in that sport, and he was one of them. And I just look at it like it was just a tragedy, and as much as I can say is just don't take life for granted. You know, be appreciative of everything, and like I said, RIP to a true legend of the sport.
We'll be right back with part 2 of the Why Not Us, Why Not Now podcast.